What do secret societies, ancient mystics, indigenous people and tribes, and religions of all kinds, what do they all have in common in achieving higher states of consciousness? In this video, I'm going to break this down and exactly what they do and the similarities of it and how you can use this and apply this to your manifestation process. And in fact, most of you probably have already done that because most of you have probably been to church, right? Now, I know a lot of people have probably experienced this where you've been to a church, or you grew up in a church to some degree. What do they call the front of the church? They call it an altar. Okay. Now, what does an altar do? What is it designed to do? If you think about what they say and alter your state of consciousness, that is what an altar is doing. And ancient mystics knew that and understood that. So when you go to a church and you were going to the front and you were praying, for example, and you took your sacrament, your Holy Communion, and then you would kneel at the altar and you would pray. It's putting you in an altered state of consciousness to connect to, God or, whatever the faith or religion is, to pray on the things that you want different. Now, all this stuff is just to create the altered state of consciousness. Now, what happens in the church? You see the cross, you see all these other symbolic things of imagery. And all that is to do is not just for ambiance, or it's like it's a theme, and we're just thumbnailing, stained glass windows and of images of Christ and everything else. It's creating symbolism. It's creating states of consciousness. As you enter, you're able to that energy, feel that moment of being in there, to be in that state of openness and oneness in your religious practice. But there's also to the same aspect of, like, think of the Egyptians. They had a lot of hieroglyphics. And I know you've heard the saying, a picture speaks 1,000 words. Well, the all-seeing eye speaks 1,000,000 words to a lot of different people. A lot of people associate it with the Illuminati or Freemasonry. And yeah, they have a big association to it. But what people fail to understand is what it symbolizes, what it means to them. To the Egyptians, it was probably it meant enlightenment, the enlightened one. It wasn't meant for an evil or representing evil of any kind or any mischievous practice. It was meant to alter your state of consciousness, in that when you see that, you are reminded of it. Now, think about this. If you're saying an affirmation, how many times do you get tripped up on your words? You didn't say it right enough. Did you say it enough times? Did you robotic affirm 500 times today? All that stuff. And think about when you see an image, you instantly know what an image is. Like with a logo, when you look at a logo, when you think of Nike, you think Michael Jordan, you think, just do it. You think all the shoes, it's got to be the shoes. You see MJ's logo, you think of like pretty much everything MJ, right? You think of what else, a logo that's pretty Coca-Cola, like, or whatever, whoever has famous logos. You can associate that without saying a word. You already have thoughts and opinions of it. Like your brain starts to fire off 1,000,000 thoughts and ideas by seeing something. The ancients understood this. They understood that they could write a symbol and they could look at it and they could meditate on this symbol or on this what people will know, like in magic, they use talismans and sigils. Now, I'm not saying practice this or practice that, but I'm trying to get you to see that the mechanisms are exactly the same. If they write a sigil and they write a talisman and they meditate on it with the idea of art it being completed, and they hear and feel it now, what's the difference of that between what Neville Goddard or Dr. Joseph Murphy or Florence Shin or Jesus, what was the difference from all those teachings? They're all exactly the same. It puts you into a state of consciousness to where you can feel it. Like how Neville Goddard says, you feel it, the wish fulfilled. You hear the inner conversations, which I call the voice of victory, and it puts you in that state of consciousness. So if you were able to see something that was out, if you saw the all-seeing eye, I don't look at the all-seeing eye like I used to when I was younger, of being Illuminati and just all this just bad stuff. I see it as being something illuminating, something that is reminding me that I am the observer, that I do not judge. I I am a God living a human experience and divine power in me. I look through that lens and I don't judge things as they are. I don't judge things at all. I let them be. They are what they are and they will be what they will be. I just observe, I witness, right? That's what the all seeing eye means to me. If you understand this application, you're really not doing anything different when you write affirmations. When you try to go into sats, or when you listen to subliminals, or when you listen to affirmation tapes, it's no different. You're still trying to achieve or accomplish a higher state of consciousness to be able to manifest your desired reality. And really that's the end goal, is to, how do we do that? How do we go and to achieve that? But the one problem and the big trap that you have to make sure that you don't fall into is that you put more belief and more emphasis on these techniques or rituals, right? Because just the word ritual doesn't mean it's evil, right? Churches have rituals all the time. It's, when you baptize somebody, there's a ritual for that. When you get married, there's a ritual for that. When you go for your communion, there's a ritual for that. For every religion, there's always a certain ritual that has something. Doesn't mean it's, when you hear the term ritual, doesn't mean it's like you're doing something evil. It's just like there's a lot of this surface level stuff that scares people away from the truth. And what the truth is all the things that have been hidden from us over all these years on how to achieve this secret knowledge and this higher level of consciousness that we're all capable of at any point in time. Sometimes what I'll do too is, if I find like an arrowhead, I was always told at a young age, like, oh, pick up the arrowhead. It's a lucky sign. It's, hold it with you and all this kind of stuff. Or if you find a penny, or, anything like that. Like, I'm pretty sure you guys watching probably have your own things that you've been told, like, oh, a certain charm or whatever, but it's like, even if you were to write something out and draw something out, whether, if you're using like a talisman or a sigil or whatever you want to call it, or some kind of symbol, and you're not so much charging or anything like that. I'm not saying any of that stuff, but I'm just saying it means something to you and you know what it means, right? It could mean like you're prosperous and you're healthy and you're abundant and you walk in divine order and and trust everything in the universe. All that could speak that and much more, just with one symbol, just with one little icon or drawing or something that you did, right? Or it could even just be holding, if it's a cross, if it's the Ankh, the Egyptian Ankh, or it could be anything. I mean, hell, it could just be a coffee mug. Like, I'm not, I'm just using, like, being like kind of sarcastic at this point, but it's like, you could just use anything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a particular device or a particular thing. You can use anything as long as it puts you in that state of consciousness that you can focus in that. Just kind of like, think about how Neville talks about going to your father in secret and then create your reality here and see everything done and fulfilled now, presently. There is no difference. You're setting up a ritual. You're setting up a time, no different. Like I said, going in the sats at night, that could be a form of a ritual that people do, like, hey, I'm getting ready for bed. I have my take my vitamins or whatever. I wash my face, take my shower. I do my 3 breaths in and out, and then I listen to a theta wave tape and I try to get in sats or whatever it is, right? That could be your state of trying to get into a higher level of consciousness, but is a ritual. Why is it a ritual? Why are you using it? Because what you're trying to do is alter your state of consciousness. So there's nothing to be scared of altars, or, and I'm not trying to say create an altar of a manifestation or anything like that. But if there's a space, I don't see anything wrong in having a space where you go into, and that's where you meditate. That's where you do your process every day. It could be a little space in your room in the corner, or it could be your office desk or whatever, wherever you feel comfortable doing it. You have that sacred space that is yours. And you don't necessarily need to have a sacred space. You can do this anywhere, right? It doesn't matter. So think about this, if you have a sacred space at home, but you're on vacation and you're living your life and you're being abundant, you're just crushing it with your reality creation, but you're like, oh man, I'm not in my space. What am I going to do? Like, that becomes like the crutch, right? That's the trap that you run into. But if you took something with you, like, man, I know that I am all that I need. It comes from me. I just breathe in and breathe out. I become one. I become present in the moment, and then I just go into my higher consciousness of hearing everything done now and experience and live in that identity of having everything done now. But if you're wanting something to kind of help you along, and I do this all the time, I'll take like a coin, or if I do draw something or an affirmation, I'll either like one of my big affirmations or declarations is I think it, I speak it, I know what I am. And so what I did is I made like a little card, if you will. Like I don't carry the wallet. I carry like a little pocket card thing, like just a little rectangle thing like that. And I make it the size of that, but I put it through I laminated it so it doesn't crackle and crink and everything else. So if I was going through something, if it was having issues that was contradictory to my experience, to what I wanted to experience, and 3D was screaming louder, if the old story was screaming louder, and I was having one of those days that I really needed just to kind of do a quick focus, and I'm out with friends or I'm out, in public, I can't really just be like, okay, go to Sats and say an out loud affirmation, robotic affirm that, like a mug in the grocery store, just loud as shit. I don't recommend doing that. But what I do is I'll put my hand in my pocket and I'll feel the laminate, declaration cutout that I made, and I know what it says. So when I touch it, I can hear myself say in my head, I think it, I speak it, I know it, I am. So it alters my state of consciousness instantly. But I know that it's not the thing, it's not the laminated thing that did it. It's me that did it, but it puts me in that connection space. It puts me in that state of consciousness to be able to access that, to be able to call upon it. So I'm not trying to say it's like you use this as like a technique, like of a journaling or robotic affirming, affirmation tapes and affirmations and all these things. It's not a technique to rely on. It's a technique to do. There's nothing to do outside of you. And I don't want you to think that I'm saying that, but it's something that to not be afraid of, to not be scared of having that. If you were to have a little kind of like altar of like, of whatever it is that you're, let's just say you're manifesting, I don't know, Lamborghini. I did this one day and actually it was funny. I was manifesting, not manifesting, I was kind of testing out something just to see how my awareness was. Funny story for another day, but it was like a yellow Lamborghini. And so what I did is I was at a toy store or going through a toy store, was buying something for my nephew. It was his birthday. And I bought this little yellow Lamborghini diecast and I put it on my dresser. And I was just like, hey, man, I'm just seeing that, thinking about it. Right. And it's like, that's cool. Like, would it be cool to own a yellow Lambo? And that's awesome. Well, what did I keep seeing pop up? Lambos everywhere. And then where I live, there's not that many people with exotic cars like that. And I was seeing them like they were a dime a dozen, like purple Lambos, yellow Lambos, white Lambos, pink Lambos. And it was funny when I was checking out at the drugstore, I was getting something at Walgreens. They had a section of nothing but yellow Lambo diecast cars. Not the same one that I bought, but like bigger ones, like, like this big diecast of yellow Lambos. And it was funny. I was like, man, this is, of course, it's in my awareness, it's in my consciousness. And, I get it. It's showing me the evidence of this outside, that it was in my awareness. And so I don't say like I created an altar for a freaking yellow Lamborghini, but it was there and I saw it every day. It's not like I laid it offerings or treats or anything like that, but it was something I saw every day, and it was in my state of consciousness. I mean, it was in my awareness. So one thing that I would, like my grandmother, she was a devout Catholic her whole entire life. Both my grandparents were, but she had this thing and I thought it was really cute. She had this, anytime I would talk to her, she was like, I'm praying for you. And it's, how I was a touring musician at one point, and she says, so how did your shows go? They were good. I'm like, yeah, we had a sold out show. It was great. Everything went great. It's awesome. It's going really good. We're in the studio making another record. And she's like, oh, it's so wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. And she would tell me that I have this little guitar pin. It was like a pin that you can put on a blue jean jacket. And she says, I have one for everybody. I have something for everybody, and yours is a guitar pin. And every time I see it, I see you being happy and doing music that you love to do. And I hear you tell me that, grandma, things are just amazing. I love making music and it's so good. And it's amazing to me, on how full circle things come, because it's exactly what she's telling, or what she was telling me what she was doing is exactly what Neville was doing. It's exactly what every ancient mystic is doing. It's exactly what these secret societies do. They they have these things to invoke a level of higher consciousness, to let this thing speak louder than words, so that way they can see and envision that. They can see it and they can hear it. And she was doing that for all of us. Like, I can't remember what my sister's was and my mom's and everybody else's in the family. Everybody had something. And then she had the, a statue of Jesus, and, her rosaries and everything else, and her candles and all that stuff. Catholics were very big on these things. And so she had this little altar. And so when she would go to this thing, and she would alter her state of consciousness, and she would be in that state where she felt one with her divine creator, and where she felt that anything that she was asking for and receiving was of course it was going to be that way. And she lived a great life. They both did. And it's just so cool to see how, when you get rid of the dogma and you get rid of the prejudice on different things, you can see how they're all connected, how symbolism is connected, how prayer is connected to amulets and talismans, and how all those things are all they're doing, and all they ever have done is to put you in an altered higher state of consciousness, so you can feel at one with your creator, and you can manifest, is essentially what you're doing, your desired outcome. So how do I do this and apply this? Like I told you how I do it with the affirmations, with my little laminate thing I put in my pocket. It can be a number of things. If you're wanting to multiply the income of your bank account and your business, you can put, one cool thing to do is there's this fake money on Amazon that come in like stacks, where they look like they're, move like movie props. You can get some of those. You can put them, every time you open up your drawer, your sock drawer in the morning, you see just a pile of cash just sitting there, and you can just touch it and be like, yep. Every time you see that, I'm not saying create an altar in the religious sense of like you really gotta get monkey with it, and you get in tune, and you have to be in this holier than now state in order to have this. I'm just talking about anything that puts you in the state of consciousness. It's even something where they neuroscientists have called something the Tetris effect, where you look at something the night before you go to bed, like as you're going to bed, within the first 5 minutes before you fall asleep, you look at that. Your mind is running on this thing, and then when you wake up and you see this thing within the first 5 minutes of you wake up, your mind is focused on that image or that thing. And they were talking about how it's firing off all these the neurons in your mind, and doing new neural pathways and creating that. So I wanted to make this video kind of pointing this out of how, not to be afraid of that stuff, but also don't become somebody that depends on all that stuff too much, because you are the I am, and you are really all you need to do anything. But I know sometimes reality, in all the things that try to contradict you, when the universe hasn't adjusted, and when reality doesn't seem like it's moving, and everything's kind of seemed like it's still the same, and you're still going through this constant loop, and your identity is being tested. It doesn't hurt to have something where you can just touch or see or go to help reach your higher states of consciousness, to help put you back in the saddle. Whether it's just seeing a cool, like if you just write I am, it's just cool to see all that and apply this to your practice, your way of creating the life that you want. Because when you start embracing all these things, you really see that it's a beautiful thing that we have. It's this technology that's in us inherently, this divine, untapped, unlimited technology, and how people have accessed this technology over thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, across spans of different languages and religions and mystic practices, and how they're all essentially doing the same thing. So if you're wanting to understand that as you do this, and if pressure does hit, and how to pull yourself out of that pressure, and to be able to get back into the identity of I am, and how that is the most crucial point to that's really your test on if you are the new I am, or if you're being the I am of your old story. And when that moment hits, on why that's the most important process, the important time. If you want to know how to navigate through those waters, you can find that video up here. You can click that, and I'll see you over there.